it saved my life. This whole community saved me.
Wait, hit him with the shit that go like ba da da, ba da da.
Okay.
What's up, everyone? Shaq here for EDM.com, and you know who this is ahead of the release of Song Request. I mean, everyone's quite literally requesting it. Ray Volpe, how's it going, my man?
I'm great. I'm feeling really good. Love that intro. Very fun. Very fun.
Thank you. Usually, I mean, I try to get more bombastic, but I've been fighting off a cold, so I'm sorry that I didn't give you like an A+ effort today, but I appreciate that.
The fact that it even goes higher than this, that's pretty good, though, you know?
Yeah, well, sometimes it's a little, the theater kid really comes out of me, you know?
Got you, yeah.
Now, I am curious. First things first. I know you posted this, but while we got to see Busta Rhymes' initial reaction, we never got to see yours. What was going through your mind the first time you saw this clip?
I would say a very similar face to Busta Rhymes, honestly, because I think it was the mixture of that and pure shock, because I wasn't tagged in the story. I was just swiping through Steve's stories because I knew that he had downloaded it and was starting to play it. And I was like, oh, I wonder like what's going on this weekend. I was swiping through and I'm like, oh, he's playing. I'm like, oh, that's the second part of Song Request. And I'm like, wait a second, that's Busta fucking Rhymes. Can I curse on here?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I was like, what's going on? Seeing those worlds collide is just like absolutely insane. So I was making very similar faces, honestly.
Yeah, Busta Rhymes, like such an underrated hip hop goat in my opinion, but
He's
that's
definitely underrated. I think it's 100%, like an icon, legend.
totally. Well, speaking of them, how much of an interaction have you had with DJ Diesel? Because being named Shakiel, that's like A+ on my bucket list of interviews. What do you just have you? How much time have you spent with him, if any? And then, what has it been like to see him co-sign EDM music and bass music in particular?
My best friend Shaquille O'Neal. We've talked a little bit, and it's mainly at festivals when we run into each other. He's actually, I have a funny kind of little quick tangent of how I ran into him, how I met him for the first time was at Lost Lands. I think it was 2021, and he was the special guest, and he had arrived. And when he showed up, he was swarmed by a bunch of different DJs and industry people, and I'm like 50 feet away, steering clear, because I'm like, I'm not going to bombard the guy. At this point, he had played some of my songs out in his sets, and I would love to say hello, but I don't want to just add to it because it's obviously a lot as it is. So I see him, he's all the way down there, and I'm like, I'm just going to not go. So I start to turn and walk away, and I hear from a distance, just very loud, Ray Volpe. And I was like, hold on. I thought God was coming down. I was like, what's happening? And he saw me from distance. And it's literally like a movie where a pathway clears. Like, I just start walking towards him. And he's like, I love your music, man. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. He's very, very kind. We've had very nice interactions every time we have talked at festivals and at events and such. He's a very nice person. And the thing is, people like to say a lot of things. And there's something that is true is that Shaq is a DJ and Shaq is a fan of bass music. Some people want to dispute either of those things, and they're going to fail at it. I've seen the dude up there at Lost Lands, and he is hitting hot cues, and he's been DJing since the 80s. He loves this, and he loves bass music. That's for sure. And it's easy to love bass music, especially if you're an athlete, an iconic one such as him, because it's energetic music, helps people work out, helps people get into the game for whether they're playing basketball or they're doing other sports or whatever it may be. So those loves for both of those things are very real. And his co-signing of all these other artists, both popular already and up and coming or from the underground, it's really cool. It helps legitimize bass music even more. I think that if you're outside of bass music and you're outside of dubstep and all that, you think it died in 2011. Like after Skrillex really popped off, they think it's dead from back then. They're like, oh, dubstep, Skrillex. And it's like, it's obviously bigger than it's ever been with events such as Lost Lands, Bass Canyon, Rampage out in Europe. So it's bigger than it's ever been. And I think that people like him that are legitimately A-list celebrities coming in that show appreciation for it, it does legitimize it a bit more. So I think it's really cool stuff that he's doing.
Not that it'd be advisable to your health, but if you see Shaq in the mosh pit, do you have to take your shot?
I think that's like definitely like the first thought, and then I go, oh, this is not going to work out on 5'5", and so I do steer clear.
That's fair. That's fair. We have song requests coming up, like I teed up at the top, man. There is so much enthusiasm, and I'd argue uh, impatience to see this finally drop so people can have it on rotation on their streaming services. I am curious, not to put the cart before the horse, but every time I hear people talking about song requests, they can't help but bring up the enthusiasm there was for Laserbeam upon the release of that song. For you, can you sort of compare the feelings between the hype you're feeling now for song request as an established guy who's experienced success in this scene versus what it was like when Laserbeam first started bubbling up?
Definitely. And I do see those comparisons in terms of that hype and that excitement. And it's a really awesome feeling to have because I guess, firstly, as an artist that's had a hit, so to speak, with Laserbeam, it's very easy to be nervous of one-upping that, following it up, having a sequel of sorts, which I think I've had some mini sequels with other songs in my catalog, like Happy Song, which was played out very much throughout like the bass scene. I would consider that like a Laserbeam 1.5 almost. It wasn't a full-on sequel, but just like it's got its own thing going. Or See You Drop is another example, which is crushing streams that I was so shocked at. Is another kind of 0.5 to that. But yeah, Song Request kind of feels like the first real sequel. It's like the first real big one. And I think the main difference in at the beginning when I made Laserbeam, I thought it was a really cool song. I didn't know it was going to do as well as it did. But when I thought of the idea and I put it down on paper for Song Request, I think I knew. I was almost not to say I was cocky, but I remember telling my team and my immediates around me, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the song. Like I had felt this feeling. I was like, there's something special going on here. And then when we played it, I played it for the first time at Countdown. I had a midnight moment, the 12 a.m. midnight moment, bringing in the new year with Crank That as a back-to-back, which was a really awesome opportunity. And I played it for the first time there, and I had posted it as only part of like a gallery, like an Instagram carousel gallery. I didn't put it out as a main post. It was like the third slide or something. And then I decided to put it out on TikTok, and that TikTok blew up. And I was like, oh, okay. The next show I did, the first show of January, my first show of 2024, people were singing ba da da. I'm like, off of that one popular TikTok, and then it being inside of a gallery, not even the main post of Instagram. I'm like, okay, something's happening here. And from there, it's just skyrocketed even more.
Obviously, this is very personal to each artist, but every time I talk to someone, like BB No Money comes to mind, that has a knack of producing music that is not only streamed heavily, but also ends up being sort of tied into social media on a wider scale. What is sort of your recipe for making songs that might attract that viral moment?
I think I just try to make songs that I want, because at the end of the day, I listen to songs that are catchy. I listen to songs that get stuck in my head. I listen to a lot of post-hardcore, a lot of metalcore, a lot of rock, a lot of pop punk and stuff. And I listen to the ones that have the catchiest choruses and the catchiest hooks. And in bass music, there are top lines, there are vocals, there are singers and such, but a lot of it relies on the drop. When we're not going into when we're in heavier territory or more bass kind of stuff, at least. And especially, excuse me, in house music, less on the bass house side, but in, more regular kind of house music and, tech house and such, you get a lot of emphasis on top lines. The most simple top lines that are short and sweet and catchy to the point. So for me, in bass music, I just want to have the same feeling. I just want that catchiness. So I try to make things that you feel like, they're short, sweet, to the point. That's kind of it. I think it's easy to get really convoluted, very overwhelming with like ideas and try to like get really complex, because I think that bass music is such like a sound design first thought of a genre compared to others. Like everyone's like there's a massive emphasis on the sound design and the creation, but not as much on the songwriting, I guess. And I try to emphasize that by making these cooler, kind of catchy ideas that feel just easier to remember. And I think that's kind of the recipe for me, is just going for the catchiness, short, sweet, repetitive. Not overly repetitive, but repetitive enough that you're humming it later in the day.
Now, not speaking about your music specifically, but more broadly, where do you think people, or the sort of the general public, is right And what do they get wrong about the idea that like the pursuit for virality in music is starting to take away or interfere from the originality of music?
I think there's definitely two sides to it. And I definitely think that to an extent that is true, but I think that there's a couple different ways to look at that type of subject. For me, social media changed my career for the like it hands down did. I started off making music in 2010. I started getting on people's radar in 2016 maybe, and that's when I started playing shows and I was doing all right. I had a cool thing going, and then things went very stagnant very quickly. I had nothing to really excel, even though like you could have cool artwork on your songs and stuff, but there's nothing there to really grasp. It can hinder you, and social media really changed that. With just how we posted, to how Laserbeam took off with social media, and I think that a lot of people, I don't think I've ever been cringe in my social media approach. That's the thing. And I think a lot of people look at the idea of doing social media with their music career as cringe. And the thing is that you don't need to jump around with a funny face in front of the camera to do it. I've never done that. I'm not knocking people that have done that either. It's an approach, but a lot of people hate on that. I see a lot of my peers in EDM and very much specifically bass. People will complain, being like, "I don't want to do social media. It's cringe. I'm not gonna dance in front of a camera, all that stuff." But it's like you don't have to. Think of a different idea.
Totally.
Think of another idea. They just don't want to think of another idea because a lot of people. This is kind of a rant. A lot of people want to do this with a hobby amount of effort and then get a full-time career result, and it's not going to work. And then secondly to that, people need to realize that this is not 2010 anymore, or 2014 even, or even 2017. Social media is different. The internet is different. We used to send music to blogs all the time, and or not even blogs, like go even prior to that. People would be, actually shipping out, discs to people back in the day. We don't do that anymore. We don't use discs to send out music samplers anymore. We send out an email to, either, whatever publication we can. Maybe it's you guys. We send it out anywhere and we get our music shared that way. People share music through Discord servers now. Things have changed, and it's kind of like a thing where you have to just adapt. And a lot of people don't want to adapt, I think that they don't like change, or they're not used to change. They get comfortable in their own ways. But I think that, so like off of that though, the idea of like, social media taking away from the songwriting aspect and stuff, I think there's a balance. And I think that not as humbly as I can, I think I have a good balance on that. I think I have a balance of what's catchy, what kind of goes for social media. It feels like it's meant for them, but it also works at the shows. I think a previous release, See You Drop, is a really good example of that, because it has this long fake out that's repetitive, short in terms of melody. It's very easy to remember, and it's very easy to chant, and it's very easy that can be kind of shared online, but then also you can headbang to it at the shows. It's like finding that balance there. And I think Song Request is a really good example of that as well. Because Song Request is literally is taking that concept and putting it into a song. Because people chant the drops out loud, and that's what's helped me a lot with my career with songs like See You Drop and Happy Song, or going boom, laser, like they scream it. I'm like, why don't I just?
I have definitely screamed it a few times.
That's awesome. So I'm like, well, but we do that. We do that at shows. I do that when I'm watching, Zomboy play, or I'm watching Space Laces play. I'm literally, if I'm hearing a Space Laces song out loud and I'm at a show, I'm like literally yelling the sounds of the drop. So I'm like, let's do that for this,
Yeah, one thing I love that you mentioned was that whole idea of like, there is no one concrete way to self-promote, and if it's not your style of dance in front of the camera, you don't. And I know we're both big pro wrestling fans, and I think the great lesson there, I talk to UFC fighters about this all the time, who are like, I don't want to be like Conor McGregor. It's not about shaping your persona to be someone else. It's about finding what makes you entertaining and cranking that dial up to 11.
Absolutely. You take the best parts of yourself, you dial it up, and you find ways to do it. Some people, like, Crank That has done a great job with, emphasizing doing the remixes. Yeah. It's not only the cool remixes with the viral memes that he'll use, but it's also his personality of how he's talking about it in these videos. You know how many artists do that now, that he didn't necessarily start the trend, but he popularized it in 2023 to 2024, 100%. So it's like, finding those things that help, work for you. For me, I think a big part of my social media presence is not only I would say a lot of it's the visualizer aspect, like the brand of Volpetron. So we have that robot character, that alter kind of ego, that robot, and I think that we really benefited off of like a lot of people were doing release assets for their release day, and it would be the artwork, and the artwork is animated, and then the text comes out on top in 3D, and it's like out now. And that's what it was for a lot of stuff. And I'm looking at this, and I remember being like, well, why don't we just like we bass music specifically has a huge emphasis on live visuals. Why don't we just throw one up on Instagram? So we like make a visual for this, throw it up. That could be the asset, and it's very engaging. So I think stuff like that like really helped for me. Doing stuff like that. It's kind of my way of getting out into the social media side.
Now, assuming that you have the production available to you to do so, is it a crime to play laser beams and not have a F ton of lasers go off?
I definitely think it's a crime, but it's a crime that I will have to commit throughout my career, unfortunately, as well, because it's not always up to me, which sucks. It's definitely like, it's like, oh man, I see some people tweet, they're like, he shouldn't even play it if he doesn't have lasers. And I'm like, I'm not going to not play like the biggest song of my career. That's a little weird. Like, it's a strange concept. It is a crime though. And I do think that there should be a law put in place that if I'm on the lineup, that they have to, the organizers need to go into the red financially and make sure there's lasers there. I'm definitely joking if they can't catch the sarcasm there. But yeah.
I won't even like say what show or what venue or anything, so I don't want to narrow down the possibilities. But I heard laser beams played one time at one event, and they definitely could have used some lasers, and they did not. And we all, I mean, in a sense, I guess I appreciate going against the grain, but we all looked at each other with like sheer confusion.
Yeah, that it happens sometimes. I think I'm only ever disappointed because sometimes there's no lasers at the stage if it's a festival, and I understand that. And you can,
there were lasers.
Yeah, and you can bring lasers in yourself, but that's like an expensive expense at that point. But when
they definitely had lasers available too.
Yeah, when there's lasers available, and then I'm not giving it, I am a bit disappointed. I don't get frustrated, but I'm always like, oh, come on, guys, because especially like I think that, if let's say there's like 30 lasers available, I'm like, you can give me like 5 for like this moment. Something I've been really grateful for in that regard is I think Excision does a really great job with the production support on this tour I've been doing with him, Nexus. Like, I love that, they give me lasers every single time for Laserbeam. It's really kind. They don't have to at the end of the day. They could save all that for the headliner. They could save it all for him, and he goes out his way to make sure that they don't. And that's really cool.
I was gonna cut this. Are you in a rush to get out of here, Ray?
I'm chilling.
Okay, good. Then I'm chilling too. Tell me a little bit about what sort of turned me from like the event that took me from like casual consumer to just like diehard fan was Bass Canyon in 2019. Can you tell me a little bit about what Excision has done for the electronic music scene as a whole, with his curation of events and?
Yeah, I think that he's the reason it's as big as it is. I think that he is, and I think that without him, I don't think that it would be, because events like Lost Lands and Bass Canyon are without a doubt the biggest bass events in North America. And like events like Forbidden Kingdom wouldn't exist really to the popularity extent without Bass Canyon and Lost Lands. I think it's a really amazing thing what he does for the community. I think that he's constantly playing up and coming underground artists in his sets. Some people want to make comments. Maybe he doesn't play enough of his songs. He plays a lot of underground kids. Guess what? He's putting on these kids and he's giving them a lot of careers. I wouldn't be anywhere without him. He's one of the first people to ever support me. Like 2014, he's been supporting me out live at shows since 2014. I first saw him in 2013 in Charlotte at the Fillmore. So 1 year later, he was playing out a remix of mine, and I thought that was insane. And now 10 years later, I want a tour with him. And I think it's really cool that he loves bass music. Obviously, he loves dubstep, and he never stopped. And he keeps one-upping his events and keeps doing more. And I can say confidently, because there's a couple of festivals that I've repeated and come back to because they're awesome festivals to play. Something I could definitely say about the Excision events when it comes to Lost Lands and Base Canyon is that they take that feedback from the fans. They ended up building a whole bridge like at Lost Lands in Ohio. There's it's like I think it's like a total bitch to get through like from maybe camp to the actual GA area. I don't know where from or parking. I don't know because you have to cross like a road. They built a bridge officially like last year that goes over. And that would definitely was that's not just a bridge to be built. That is a Lost Lands built bridge. And that's awesome. They take the feedback seriously. It improves every year on the backside for artists in terms of what's kind of going on behind the scenes as well as in front for the fans as well. There's a lot of upgrades every year, and it's really cool to see. I think even looking at the initiative he did a couple years ago now, where he gave a bunch of people money. It was like 10 producers, $10,000 or something like that each. Vastiv was one of the winners that like I feel like really thrived out of that because Vastiv's like a really awesome buzzing up and coming name that really took that and ran with it. I think that's really cool what he does.
Well, I look forward to seeing you at perform at Base Canyon this year, and I don't know if the dome is coming back, but the first time I went, they had this like dome that you would go and lay in, and they'd project like this DMT-esque show all around you.
Oh, I didn't even. That's early days for me. I wasn't there at that point. That's sick though. I think I've seen videos.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. As we wrap up, last thing before we finish up on some rapid fire, the thing that really, even at Base Canyon, like bass music at the time and dubstep was so foreign to me that I put myself through boot camp. I was in South Africa for a month, maybe 2 months. I can't remember. I think it was 1 month. And I built a 24-hour-long playlist of music from the artists performing that year, and I just forced myself to love it. And I do now, so it worked. But the thing that put me on beyond that was the community. Coming from, as a hip-hop fan growing up, the idea that you'd go to a concert and there wouldn't be, let alone like someone not getting punched or stabbed, the fact that everyone was kind, everyone was concerned for your well-being, completely took me by surprise and like immediately made me a fan of the culture. And the same goes for the performances, the back-to-backs, artists remixing each other, playing each other's songs. Like it seems like it is in totality relative to other genres, in my opinion, a really welcoming, collaborative environment. For you, if I had read correctly, you ended up leaving high school because you were getting bullied so much.
Yes.
What's it been like for you to find a community in electronic music, both from the fan and artist perspective, having gone through that earlier in your life?
It's life-changing. Honestly, it saved my life. This whole community saved me. I felt so, I guess, like lost and empty, especially leaving high school and not feeling like I had a sense of like family outside of my immediate family. Because my immediate family is pretty small as well. It's just my mom, my dad, and my sister. And so to find a group and a community where I felt like I really had people, it's starting off in this Skype group where I met a lot of friends. Like that initial Skype group, there's people like Dion Timmer and Tizoki were in there.
Whoa.
Like that's like, we go back to 2010. Like, there's always some of like the longest friends I've ever had. And from there to, Discord servers and meeting people at shows and festivals. And like, I've made so many awesome friends. Like there's people like we're online friends, but we're also real life friends. People like, Kai Wachi, who's like one of my best friends, who I love very dearly on a personal level. We share a lot in common that we like love to talk about on like deep levels, or like other artists out there who I wouldn't be anything without. And I appreciate so much. I think it's a really amazing feeling knowing that I've like kind of gained a family here.
Well, hopefully that's a lesson, everyone. There's always a community out there somewhere for you.
There is, absolutely. And I think that's why some people end up on like VR chat and they like feel like they're only comfortable on there, or some people find in other communities, other like niche areas and stuff. This is like just a bigger niche one in EDM.
I always like to try and end these on some rapid fire, just ask some off the cuff questions. First, Ray Volpe, I know you couldn't come up with any stage names cool enough to take them on, but are there any that come to mind that you drew up and then threw on the draft floor?
For names?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, probably. I think funny enough, I did have an idea to do something not with the name Cyclops, but like I wanted to be part of like the brand a long time ago in like 2010. And now obviously like there's literally the artist Cyclops, and then there's also Subtronics, whose whole brand is Cyclops type things. So that would never be a thing. But back then I remember having a similar idea to that. I've always been a comic fan. So like stuff like with X-Men and Spider-Man and stuff. So I always had ideas to do superhero branding. This was a long time ago. And obviously Adventure Club has that. So those like all these things that didn't end up happening. It's like good because like someone else has it and does it. And it was less of names, but kind of, I guess, like brand ideas, stuff like that.
If you haven't been watching X-Men 97, you gotta.
It's so good.
Phenomenal good. What is the Holy Trinity? Sorry?
I haven't seen the finale yet, but I'm excited.
Okay, and neither have I. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
What is the Holy Trinity of emo bands, in your opinion?
Oh, my God. Bring Me the Horizons at the top. And then I'm going to struggle to pick the other two because I just know that Bring Me is my top number one. But currently, I can give you like my current favorites instead to switch up the question, which would probably be Bring Me, Motionless in White, and maybe like Ice Nine Kills or Dayseeker or yeah, someone like that. But like the Holy Trinity, that's hard. Bring Me's up there, always on top though for sure. Old sounding.
You recently posted a video of you messing up that double, which I love that you owned up to and you shared. Absolutely. What is the worst you've ever messed up on stage?
It might be like stuff like it might be that because I've done that one like 3 times in my career. Like it's like trying a new double. Because I have 2 CDJs and like I at home I don't have 4, and when I'm doing these doubles I need at least 3. So like I can't practice it at home. So I'm like kind of like. All right, we're just gonna try this one, and then so it's like I think it's there or at Sunset Music Festival last year. It was a very similar mess up where the music kind of has to cut out, or it doesn't have to cut. Actually, no, yeah, last year's was worse, Sunset, because this mess up was like some people that are like on drugs or messed up or drinking, they might not like hear the mess up, like so their music's still playing, but I know it's messed up, and anyone that like is either sober or like they like know music, they wouldn't hear that it was a mess up, but. At Sunset last year when I swapped the track, the CDJ that I was using, it's half my fault because I should have checked, half not my fault because the sticky button. So artists sometimes have to perform on CDJs and like there's a button for the play button that's like sticky or kind of broken because maybe they like rent out the CDJs to other people. And so they're like, worn and teared and all that. So the button was stuck. So I hit play. It didn't actually play. So when I swapped the track, it was just silent. So I was like, all right, I definitely have to go back and do this again because silence is like the worst thing that anyone could ever ask for.
Yeah, talk about a jarring experience. One time I was at a concert and between the sets, they basically it was like a 40-minute gap between the headliner and the artist before him. No music.
No.
Everyone just sitting there quietly waiting.
Oh, that's really bad.
Yeah, that was brutal. Last one to tie this back together, the song request.
Yes.
Coming out. Let me see. My light's in the way. May 31st.
Yes.
What is the weirdest song request you've ever been asked by a fan?
Wooly actually just brought this up on Twitter. We played a show together in Detroit a couple like years ago. And it wasn't at a normal bass venue at all. This is a bottle service club venue, which some DJs and bass do go to hit bottle service spots. But this one is a weird one. The stage is like in the middle, almost 360 vibe, I would say. And people can come up to you. There's like 20 people in the crowd and they're not bass fans. And someone legitimately comes up behind the booth and pokes me and he goes, "Can you play Despacito?" And I was like, this is crazy that we're here right now. That was a weird show for sure. That's the weirdest song request I've ever gotten.
Did you play Despacito?
If I had it on my USB, I probably would have, just for the hell of it at that point. But I didn't have it.
Man, jeez, I haven't heard of that song in a while. Okay, Ray Volpe, I want to leave you with the last word. So very quickly for me, guys, thanks so much for checking out the video. Subscribe, tap the bell, thumbs up, all that good stuff. Let us know what is the song request you would harass Ray Volpe for if you saw him live ahead of the May 31st release. Also, full feature on EDM.com. Ray, if there's anything you want to tell the people, the floor is yours, man.
Thank you to EDM.com. You guys have been supportive of me for a very long time, like definitely probably like 10 years at this point, which I really appreciate. You guys are all kind people, the entire team. I'm a fan myself. And I guess lastly, I hope everyone enjoys song requests. And I'm feeling some rumblings in the Volpeverse, and things are going to be going down sometime soon. And that's all I'll say about that.